Welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show tonight, Rick. How are you doing?
How you doing there, Sean?
You are from Slam 24/7 SPYZ, man. It is so good to have you. You,
So good to be here.
I remember hearing you. I had an internship for Combat and Effect and Relativity Records, and there's a handful of bands that
Oh yeah.
I got my sticky hands on. I can tell you, I got Steve I, got Scatterbrain, and I got you guys. All that time, man.
Yeah.
So
Hollis Queens was the beginning of a great career for us. And, from Howie Abrams to, all the cats that was back then, it was a dream come true.
how did you? Your sound was totally different. There's very few bands that were. I can't think of anything that sounded like you guys at the time. Where do you guys come with that sound? It's just like, you know what I'm saying? It's quite it's a lot for an evolution. You know what I'm saying? It just feels like it's like,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to just say where does it jump off, but the jump off point for us and what culminated the sound of what we did um, kind of really goes back to a time when myself and Jimmy were musicians that had worked together on several projects, and we're talking 1985, and the only thing that was really happening in that era of the 80s, it was Prince. Time, Prince, and the Time,
yeah, Morris Day,
ready for the world, Morris Day. You know, if there were rock musicians and they were black, they definitely wasn't that. It was Cameo. It was, you know, all these other acts, and if it wasn't that, it was Luther Vandross and dance groups. Anything, nothing that was
nothing heavy.
yeah, that rock and heavy.
Ethereal feels.
And
Oh,
it was all just that. And although my Jimmy had been in several different bands and doing covers and stuff like that, I remember I came over to his house and he had Motley Crue. And I was like, oh shit. And I'm thinking, and now me and Jimmy are like these young cats,
yeah.
and I was just like, he's from the projects, this black kid from the projects. And I'm like, Motley Crue, what the hell is that? And he put on that shit. She's got looks to kill.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, that bass sounds this.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. I said, well, dude, come over to my house. I got some stuff I want to play. I had Talking Heads.
Nice.
What? I didn't know. He didn't know what. And so we started going back and forth to each other's music life. Deeply that everybody knew we were just closet rock heads. I was into fusion. So I was into Stanley Clark and Chick Corea, Pretend Forever. I was listening to like Jaco Pastorius, Joni Mitchell. I was listening to P Funk. And when I
There
was
you
listening
go.
to P Funk, I was listening to like the Ohio Players, and Jimmy was going from James Brown to and Bootsy, but also he was listening to like, George Duke. And then if it went there, it was like the Platters, and he had because his record collection was so vast. So a lot of times we were finding that a lot of bands listened to a lot of stuff, but they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
play it safe, so they stayed in
Right.
one place. Fast forward, when the sound came about, it was because I was tired of the R&B cover scene that I had been doing. And myself and Jimmy had an opportunity to embark on a group that was just at the beginning of the rap scene. And it was this crazy band. Name doesn't matter. It was called Outrageous. And the leaders of it were these fraternity brothers that were into rap, but they wanted a rock feel to their music.
Oh, that would never work nowadays.
And so we're like, "Nah, that's not gonna fucking work. That shit'll never fly,
Oh.
And so, and we're talking like now it's like 86, 1984, 85,
I know.
86. And like, oh, no, it was great, man. And we had these outrageous outfits. We were playing in our underwear and long dress coats with high top white sneakers and fedoras and, putting oil all over our fucking selves and playing. It's like, and we're playing at the Harlem State Building on 125th Street
Oh
and
my
like in front
God.
of all of these. And they handed out free Newports back then, when they used to hand out free cigarettes, in the pack, and And we're like doing this shit. And we're going, we're going crazy. Jimmy's got this spiked hair, and I got some cameo spiked stuff, and we're like, dude, this shit is weird. It's not working. But the crowd was like, "What the hell is get off the stage?" But it got us in the Apollo. It got us like all these major shows because these guys were into the comedy clubs,
Mhm.
so they had connections. So we like, there's something about this that we don't know how it's going to connect. And finally, it came about an old band member that Jimmy had worked with by the name of Peter Fluid, and Anthony Johnson came later, but we had another drummer named Ken Do Fives. I get a call, I'm like I'm in the worst part of my life. I'm just like, I'm held up in my apartment with fucking 40 ounces of beer. Nobody even knew what, the weed and smoking anything I could put in me, and listening to like old jazz records, just sitting there like,
How sad.
I got no band, I got a job, I got a horrible ass girlfriend, and Jimmy calls me out of nowhere. He goes, "Yo, what are you doing?" He goes, "Yeah, I got you this guy that wants to start this band, but we don't know what it's gonna be, but your bass playing would be perfect." And I said, so when can we meet? And we met this oddball named Peter Fluid, better known as Peter Forrest.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right. I fucking
Yep.
called him out and put Peter Forrest. And we got together, and the rest is history, because we were going to shows. We was going downtown to go see Red Hot Chili Peppers. We were going to
Mhm.
see Fishbone. We were going to check out these other acts that had all this energy and wildness, and the rest was history after that.
Well, that makes
Now,
sense.
the sound that we began with, we have an early cassette that really puts together the SPYZ history. I don't know if it's around, but it's the life and times of Walter Radimus, and in that we have an early, here you go, the early period of 24/7 SPYZ. You know, I think it's on one of these discs. It was the Rebirth edition. No, it wasn't this. Yeah, 24/7 SPYZ. It's the limited. This is a limited edition DVD,
Okay.
and this DVD tells the story and the history of SPYZ from the beginning to where we are. And when we started out, we were like weird. We liked a lot of television cartoons. I just finished watching a Bugs Bunny piece where the theme song is
Yeah.
well, that was originally Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd. They were doing a screen test,
Right.
and he goes, Bugs Bunny show, and Elmer Fudd, and we would hear those melodies and go, dun, 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 and start playing it. And then we go, oh, we're going to use that in the song because nobody knows what that is.
That's
So let's
brilliant.
take that part of the song, but let's use a song that has the same feel. So we go, oh, well, what about, like fucking Skin Tight by Ohio Players? Okay. Doom, 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 doom. How are we going to do that? And it was like this, where people was like,
Evolution.
whoa, whoa, what the hell are y'all doing? We were like, we don't care.
Yeah, when I heard you guys got the tape, it didn't even have artwork on it when I got the first one. I listened to it, I put it in. I for a week, I just didn't take anything out. I could not believe, girls with the time goes, if you check these guys out, you're not gonna believe them. I was like, and there was nothing. I think you guys were different than Fishbone. You guys were different. The closest you guys were, and to label mates would be Scatterbrain, being different types of music infused.
You're right.
Fantastic, another fantastic band. But and I was talking to me tonight actually, but like Faith No More took off. Similar, but not 100%. But just like the Chili Peppers, but you guys kind of should have been. You guys, and I felt you guys in Scatterbrain should have been like right up there, getting the accolades. I kind of felt like,
Well, that was because when, in effect, that's when we got really introduced. I watched your interview with uh, you did your with Murphy's Law lead
Oh yeah,
guy
yeah, 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 yeah.
and Jimmy Gasapo.
Yes.
And in the early days of when we started out playing, we would go into hardcore matinee shows, and we would like get on CBGB's bill, and but we're still playing this quirky, weird shit. And then we'd watch these kids with these like rapid fire power chord songs that were like 2 minutes or 1:30. And we were like, okay, well, looking at the crowd, the way they react when they hear this angst, and we were now we started to morph it. We said we needed to morph the sound a little bit. And it just so happened that our drummer that we had in the band, he was able to adapt, and he didn't understand it. So we went to a Murphy's Law show, and they would do Murphy's Law, arf, 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 Murph, beer bong, and they're pouring the beer, you know, and, you know, the pit was so powerful. And my drummer, being a black kid from the Bronx, is like, yo, man, these white kids is fighting each other. Yo, why they fighting each other? And we're like, nah, man, you don't get it. It's called mosh pits, you know, because we were going to the hardcore shows, and Kid New was hanging out uptown with his 40 and his crew. And he was like, I'm not going downtown with you guys. And finally he did the show, and he saw it. And so this kid bumped into him, and he was like, I said, no, he's dancing, man. You don't hit him. He goes, word. He starts pushing him back, and then he jumps in and starts swinging. And he came out, he was sweating. He's like, yo, this shit is fun. I was like, oh, you see,
yeah. That was the early days when it wasn't so bad, you know.
It wasn't bad. So it was Bad Brains. It was Murphy's Law. Faith No More, we didn't hit us then, but, you know, Chili Peppers, you know, like I said, you know, we were going to those early shows, and it was Bad Brains did it for us. It was like,
yeah, I mean,
that was it.
They're another band that should have been bigger.
And we decided right then and there, no, we got to change the way we're playing this. We want this to have a core. It's got to be, you know, it's got to be, you know, fast beats, you know, whatever, 186 beats per second. The faster, the better. By the time we were in our energy, we was like doing 220 beats per second. And the music was like racing. And then.
How much training did you have prior on bass? How much did you go to classes for bass? Did you learn, or?
No, I'm an ear trained guy. I don't read music or nothing. I hear something and I just go, okay, now how does that go?
Pure musicality. That is beautiful. It's great. You know, it's fantastic. Just the sound.
Myself and Jimmy.
Yeah.
Both of us never had any kind of prior training. I think Jimmy, we both had music training as kids. I started on clarinet. And I want to say the gateway drug.
That or a kazoo.
yeah.
You know, it was another thing, the hand recorder or something. That's the other one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I could play that on bass. And I wanted to be a trumpet player. That was my first choice. I wanted to be a trumpet player. My mother was like, "Ain't no way in hell you playing that up in here." And when I graduated high school, this kid gave me a bass. And I said, "Cool." So I snuck it in the house, and I got past my mother and everything, put it in the room. Very religious household, so you know, none of that shit going on Sunday and stuff. My mother was working all week, and you know, she come home tired from working, and you know, I was the only one still living at home. Everybody was out the house at this point. And she said, why you had to come up with like this music thing? It's like the room is always loud and there's all this smoke in the other room. What's going on in there? Oh, my school. Yeah. Incense burning, change the light bulbs and everything.
Oh. You're like the last kid. She's like, I think I got this. I'm almost done with this.
Yeah, but you know, that's all I did. I locked myself in a room with a bass. I didn't play basketball, football. I didn't join the kids in the park. I would be upstairs nerding out, man. And, you know, and that was it, you know. And one guy, he had a friend of mine, he was like, yo, dude, when you gonna meet some girls? I said, I don't have time. I'm like trying to learn this instrument. And that was the first time he goes, well, here, you should keep one of these just in case you want to meet a girl. So he throws a fucking Penthouse magazine, my first porno mag. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Turn the bass. So I fell in love with porno and bass playing.
You get better at one, you get with girls, you get better at bass.
Yeah, it was just like it helped, So and then I discovered when I did play bass in a band, in the streets when I'm like about 15, 16, after the show, all the girls came to talk to me.
There you go. The fact that you and Jimmy get along so well musically, like from the very beginning, the connection defines, a muse, to find somebody like that for so much of your life is such a lucky thing, that you guys are so good together. It's like you guys are born together, like, separate in the hospital. You high five each other outside the other, the cribs there.
Yeah. Well, because we have a couple of years between us, not much, but a few years. He's an old soul, and he's been here before. And I was exceptionally, I was really gravitated toward it because once I started playing, we're in the projects. So a lot of our life was spent like as kids playing in bands that battled other bands from projects. Like I said earlier, that's how Jimmy and Peter met. They were in rival bands. I had a band that wasn't a rival to anybody's band, but we were like this underground. We knew like a lot of really cool songs that we would play, but we always made sure we stuck to the instrumentation. One keyboard, one guitar, one drummer, and a female singer. So we will do Chaka Khan. We would do Betty Davis. We would do like anything that had, Minnie Riperton songs by, artists. Like I said, like Joni Mitchell. I was like, yo, you got to learn this song, help me, I'm falling in love. And this girl's from the project. She's like, oh, I got to know that. And here we are practicing. And people like,
that must have been so
is that
good.
your own music? Because it really sounds great. And we're like, they think it's an original. And I would make up bass lines. And I had this guitar player. Y'all pray for my boy, Ron Quayle. He had a stroke about 2 weeks ago. So he's been in the hospital, this cat that I played with. And he was enamored with my music selections of music. So he goes, okay, cool. And so Jimmy was discovering the same thing about himself musically. So once we started talking, because a lot of times I couldn't talk music with a lot of my friends, my peers were like, no, that's just how corny. Some white boy music, man. It's just how corny, man. What is that? I'm like, I'm 7 years old. I love the Beatles. I love the Rolling Stone, the Dave Clark 5. And, but in the other room, my sister's listening to Hendrix, and Sly and the Family Stone. And then my mother's listening to Arthur Prysock, and, Lou Rawls.
That it shows though. It's great. I mean, I have a love of everything like that too. So I mean, I think it's fantastic, and I think, you guys didn't hold it back. Everything you guys heard, you put back into your music, and you're doing it. I mean, and I don't know how you guys have stayed strong. Like, so Jimmy didn't sing in the beginning, but now he's singing in the later albums. When did he discover? He's a great singer. He's a great singer too.
He was always the one that did the vocal reps. You gotta understand, Jimmy is the producer. He produces 99.999% of everything you heard by SPYZ. And although my songwritership started coming in as I got into the group, and he was like, your songs are my favorite songs on the album. So please, can I write like the lyric melodies? I'm like, sure, dude, kill it. So his vocal arrangements, his singing, his ear for background vocals and what to be sung was all based on when it was time for him to write. He was doing it in his other band. He was the bass player and he was the singer in the band because everybody sang in his old band.
Right.
And that's where we all came from. Everybody has to sing in the band. It's like, I hate these suck-ass bands. I won't name no names, but the whole band is lined up. They got a lead singer. There's all these background vocals on the record, and nobody goes to the mic and sings. So the whole show, the microphones are there. I'm just like,
I know.
So when we went to see King's X, we were like, are you freaking kidding me? We said 3 guys, 3 vocalists, 3 instruments. I'm like, we don't fucking need, well, Peter quit.
Right.
And we felt as though, since the band was already signed to a label, let's get a lead singer. And we got Jeff Broadnax. And then Anthony quit. We wound up getting Joel Matoza. And then it wasn't too long after that when Jeff kind of quit the band, but didn't want to do it anymore. We don't really know what the hell happened with Jeff, but it just didn't work out. He wanted to go do other things. So I said, well, Jimmy, what do you want to do? He goes, I'm going to start singing. The hell with that. Because we were always singing the backgrounds. He goes, I know all the songs because I wrote them. I just had Peter, up front, just being like, mimicking what Jimmy intended the songs to sound like. But Peter never did that because he would get to the stage and it would turn to something else.
Right.
So it was when we did Heavy Metal Soul by the Pound. It was after Temporarily Disconnected and Anthony left and Joel came in. And then that was the culmination after Strength in Numbers. Then came Temporary Disconnected. And then we came out with the record that had all 3 of us on there. And that was the beginning. And we never looked back. It was like, no, you don't need a lead singer, Jimmy. You're going to do it all. It's
like, it's one less member you have to worry about too, right? You have to worry with the lead singer.
3 people getting paid, not 4.
That's right. It's like King's X. Yeah, the King's X is great. You have an album, I'm going to say, is the soundtrack to Innermost Galaxy the most recent album that you guys have out, right?
Yeah, Sean.
It is so good. It is so strong. Like, everyone's got the vocals on it. So like, I was like, man, there's like everyone's singing. Everyone's playing like at 120%, different parts of different songs. And it's so cohesive that it's magical, man.
Thank you.
Is there any special stories from any of those songs that,
Oh boy.
I know, right?
Well, there's a lot of special meanings to these songs, but this record came because there was no music from us. The last record we had done was Face the Day. That was our second debut as a trio after Heavy Metal Soul by the Pound. And we did Face the Day, and that featured Tobias Ralph on drums, me on bass, Jimmy on guitar. And that was almost like an abbreviation from where the band had taken a huge break. Myself and Jimmy just went in separate directions, and we were like, you know what, we got to do something. I gotta live another life than just being this musician, because responsibilities are getting heavy, and we're not signed to a deal, and what are we gonna do? No, I'm not gonna go play bass with somebody else's band. Like, oh, it was Rick Skatore. Actually, I went out with Bad Brains and played bass for a short stint, and I was supposed to be on for like about 7 nights or something like that. It might have been 5 or 6 shows. By the time I got to the 3rd, when Daryl Jennifer came back, he was supposed to be gone the whole time because there was some medical issues with the family. I was fucking the shows up. I mean, I was beasting the hell out of his music.
Oh.
And it got back to him. They're like, yo, Rick Skator's killing Bad Brains, dude. I don't know. He really sounds good in Bad Brains. And then when they had Joseph I and Mackie was on drums, Dr. No. So that's pretty funny. But I just had a sidebar there talk about what Bad Brains. I meant to tell that story. A lot of things had happened. Mostly Jimmy, because when it comes down to songwriters, we have witnessed something close to like 14 people that passed away. And think about this. This is way before COVID.
Oh, I was going to say this album feels like spiritual, sort of.
It was completely out of all of the life that was lost around us. In hindsight, we didn't know we would lose Ronnie Drayton right after the record was done. And that's where a lot of it was from, the emotional aspects of some of the music. Actually started with Home.
Mm-hmm.
That one song was the one song that he demoed up. That was his first time hearing music, because there was a time like neither one of us could hear music. It was like my ears were dead. Like I didn't know what to write. I didn't know what I was going to write about. I couldn't grasp anything. And for Jimmy, and for me, it's like hard because I only write a few songs on a record anyway,
Right.
maybe one or two, maybe three. But for Jimmy, it was just like, dude, what's going on? What are you writing? What's up? What you got, Jimmy? He's like, I got nothing. And besides, mini backtrack, it was on the tour of we were doing Heavy Metal Soul by the Pound. And
Mm-hmm.
we were on tour. We went back over to go do was it Face the Day? Yeah, it was Face the Day. We went over to do Face the Day tour. It was myself, Anthony, Tony Lewis,
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy. And this was the same year Jimmy's daughter was born.
Mm.
And we're doing fine, and we had to do a show in Austria, and we blew a tire, and our vehicle fishtailed down the highway and started flipping.
Oh.
And we were in one of the most horrendous crashes. We had never been in a car crash. I mean, we had little bumper things, but the tire blew and the truck careened off the road.
Oh.
And we're literally on one of the fastest highways in Austria. And it ran head on into the guardrail, but because the angle of the trajectory made the vehicle bounce backwards and flip on the side and flow down the road, as opposed to going through the guardrails. And over the other side of the guardrail, it was just all straight down into the forest. We would have all been dead. And he got home and he just wanted to hold his baby. That's all he knew, because he knew he almost died. And that was the beginning of like, I'm not fucking with the road right now. I'm not, all of us went home just completely shook up. Like, no, that's it. I'm done with the music. I'm not, But it was all of these things that followed. He had his niece had gotten very ill. She died. And then there was just one after another death was just on him. And I was there for it, man. And then the one that really got him was Jeff Lee Johnson. And great guitarist, one of the most underrated guitar players ever. And we were going to do a show together, and he was going to play with us on stage because we were doing a benefit show for Ronnie Drayton's son, Donovan Drayton, who was arrested on a murder charge, and he was never found guilty, but the prison system just took him and they just locked him up because he wouldn't rat. And so they go, okay, so you're going to do the crime. You're the trigger man. And he wound up spending 5 years in prison without even being booked or anything. He was slapped in Rikers without a court date or nothing. So we had a benefit show to raise funds for that. And Jeff Lee Johnson was supposed to play. Somehow or another, he came down with an illness and he caught pneumonia. And he didn't do well after that. From that point, his head had fallen off. And now Jimmy's just completely devastated because he had gotten a chance to meet somebody that he didn't know he had been listening to, and found out who it was. It's Jeff Lee Johnson. It was such a curious thing. And when he heard his music and heard his playing. So, by the time we did the record, Home was the launch record, the song that really told what was going on in his world. And then it was the next song after that, it was Thank You, and that was on the flip side because we met Ronnie and we had a friendship and a kindred. We started thinking about making things happen and it was all good. And then, and then the next track was, Anthem.
Yep.
That was, we had cut Anthem. Actually, Anthem was the first song we cut. Home was the first one we demoed up. Thank You is actually an old song that we had,
Yeah.
and we just revamped it and it changed everything about it. And then, I wrote Blind Dreaming because it's always about a female with me. I would have a dream about somebody that I was spending time with, and I didn't know who she was. But every time I would go to sleep, it would be the same person. And I don't know if you've ever had those dreams. You know somebody in a dream, but you know who they are, but you have no connection to them. You know who they are. And I just thought it was a crazy topic that
It's a good topic.
It's a good topic because when you go to sleep at night, you just can't wait to go to sleep so you can meet up with this person again. But it was kind of that was me expressing my true people that I lost in life. My mother had died, my father died, my aunt died. So I was the next one in line after all of his death. Mine started happening. And that's when I had also, in that period of time, I discovered I was going to get sober. And so a lot of what that dream represents is a love affair that's gone. And Blind Dreaming was the reason why I wrote that song. Yeah, and and all of the singers and the contributors on the record were just really phenomenal, and all of them came with open arms. It's like, and we were just like, let's see if we can call certain people to see if they want to come down to the studio.
It's upbeat. It has an upbeat thing to it. Think of all the catalyst of what it was. It's a very upbeat album. It doesn't feel like a sadness album. It feels more like a rejoice album.
It is a rejoicing album. It's a rejoice of life, and we really felt strong about all of the pieces, and we took our time with it.
I like the song order. The song order is good too. I think Welcome, Anthem, and Thank You Together is the tri-state, if I may. That's what it feels. It feels like those three are just perfect together.
Yeah, and the order was definitely the way we found it to be, and we had a moment where we were like, oh, maybe do we add 2 or 3 more songs? And we were hashing around with the idea. And the interesting thing about how this record was written, because Philip Fisher from Fishbone, he was on a project that we were going to do years ago, and A&M was the project. It's an acronym, and the way he said it, but we always like those words. Yeah, an anti one, because we're not what that word represents. We're something even stronger than that. It's like a machine, our accuracy. And we started this band, and it had Fish in it, and Doug Pennick, Jimmy Hazel, myself, Greg Fulton, and Spacey T.
That is a super group.
Yeah, it was a super group. And we demoed up the music to send everybody to play, but then, nobody could jump on the record, so it never happened. So Fish stayed on. Fish was like, whenever you go in the studio, man, let me know. So we started demoing up these ideas and tapping out everything on drum machines, but he's in LA. So we would send the tracks to him. He'd go in the studio, do his drums in LA, send it back to us, and we would demo over it. And we went to the studio. We used his live drum tracks in the room, but he wasn't in the room with us playing. Very interesting way to record a record. Needless to say, never do that shit again.
No, next time everything live in the room.
Yeah, like things coming in his microphones, and when you're not there, you're like, hold up, check your tom. I can hear it. And then at one point we had this really crazy thing that was going on, and we didn't know what it was, and it was his headphones. The music, our demo music, was playing. It was coming out through the earphones, and
like bleeding in,
mic, bleeding right into the track. Yeah. And we're like, what is that? And we had to find a way to cover it. Trust me, it took like hours and hours of like editing to
figure it out.
But it was all part of how we came up with sounds, because anybody who heard the record can't tell, but we just had a great time doing that record. And it was such a bittersweet moment, because even Ronnie had never been in the band, had witnessed him playing on many, many, many people's records, and never got credit. So when he came to the band, he was like, you got a song for us? That's a whole nother story, because when he wrote Repeating Myself, he had a different sound in what he was hearing in his head. And we were like, nah, dude, that's not 24/7 SPYZ. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? I've played on thousands of records. I'm like a #1 recording dude. And I'm like, yeah. We know you come from like a lineage of music. And plus, he was he was the elder statesman. So we were like, and he knew like all this martial arts. We didn't want to get fucked up in the studio. So it was like, so we're gonna, do it SPYZ.
Right, exactly.
But when it was finished, he was like this. I mean, like he would well up in tears. He goes, "That's my song, and it's a 24/7 SPYZ song now." And we were like, "Thank you. We know what we're doing here. Let us help you." So repeating myself is the first time Ronnie ever wrote a song, and it was right up with like a strength in numbers feel. He knew exactly how he pulled it in, and it's on the record, and it's not an oddball track. It fits right with everything.
Yep.
I have another good friend of mine named Kenny James out in California. He's trying to work some things out that are probably going to take place maybe later on, maybe in the summer or the fall of 2021, maybe summer of 2022. And to target new markets, and it's going to be like going into like Asia, going to Japan, probably Korea, the Philippines, because he's like, man, in Thailand only 6 people died of COVID. What the fuck? And everybody's making money over there. But I worked all my years in between. I was a stylist, we do men's wardrobe clothing, so. I would go to people's houses and do their fucking clothing line and go, here's a check. And I'm like, oh, I like that, that I eventually started doing it at department stores. And then I was in a really luxurious store and I made a lot of money. I had a huge 401k. So
good.
I kind of was, I'm the kind of like, when I wasn't on the road, I would come back off the road and I would do like construction work, that was, or a handyman job or do something, work in a music studio. I didn't always rely on the SPYZ tour. I'm a New Yorker. So it was like, okay, we're off the road. Okay, let me go get a job.
Yeah. A
Nothing
lot of
like
artists
a
just like to do
paycheck.
it. Right. Just want to work. They have to do something. Got to keep moving forward. You can't just
Nothing
wait.
like a paycheck, because like I said earlier, it wasn't about me playing in another band. I'll record some stuff for you and play bass, but I'm not going to go out on the road and play bass and play your music.
Right.
I did that with Bad Brains one time, and I saw what it got me.
It didn't work out for you, right?
It didn't work out for me. They fucking fired me like after 3 days. That's kind of where I'm at now. Really not a great deal of things have been popping up, but everybody's in a good place. I know I talked to Fish recently, and the whole thing is we're all trying to stay well. We're just trying to stay healthy.
So it's interesting. So Fish is in California as your drummer.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of drummers. Is he in California for safety?
No, that's his residence.
No, I know. I'm joking with you because you've had so many. You don't want to keep him too close because all your drummers keep vanishing. You got to keep him in a safe spot.
Well, it's funny. They don't really. The only drummers that really vanished from the scene were Anthony Johnson, Can Do Fives. We had there's a drummer named Matt that played with us for a little short period of time. We had Carlton Smith that played drums with us for a short period of time from the Royal Crescent Mob. Those were like the exploding drummers, like it was just
I
like,
think, I don't really, your own Spinal Tap, huh?
they do a show and they'd be like, I can't do this. It's like, you guys, how do y'all do that? That speed, that sound of it, hitting the drums harder than ever. But we've been lucky to have a really core. Now our main drummer is Tony Lewis, because Tony Lewis, beast of a drummer, man. But he's from here in New York, so he has a permanent kind of gig because he's a jazz drummer. So he's always got work, always. And he's always got like gigs, and he's got his own thing, his own project he started. And, I just talked to Tobias Ralph. We might go and do some runs with Tobias Ralph where
nice.
Tony Lewis can't do the shows. So You know, and there might be a leg of the tour where neither one of them do it, then Fish will jump on the tour and play drums. But what everybody's learned to know at the core of 24/7 Spies is Rick Skater and Jimmy Hazel.
Right, it is. They're just like a spice, just different flavors. What they are, you know,
Like
like a
Steely
meal.
Dan, you know, like Steely Dan, you know,
Hmm? You guys are the core. That is
you know,
awesome. No,
and
thank you for it's all this great information tonight. I want to thank you. I mean,
sure,
I mean,
thank you.
I,
I'm glad. It feels
this
good
is
to have a
so
platform to talk about it because